Hello, everyone. It's Phil Jones, and joining me is Phil Boyle. And we are back again to talk about another topic. So, Phil, what are we rapping about today?
We're going to talk about brightness, Phil, and specifically brightness standards. And there's a bunch of them, but I think we're going to kind of limit it to the most common ones. And so I want to talk about them and what the difference is. And also, more recently, there's been some significant news that is actually going to affect brightness standards and even how we report on them. So.
Okay. So, and this actually is kind of interesting because we just put up a little news article about basically Epson is on a crusade right now to make sure that everybody is properly listing their brightness measurements. Because we know that as a consumer, one of you out there, that if you're trying to buy a projector, sometimes it comes down to what you see on a spec sheet, and one projector that has a higher brightness number, you may weigh that as a better projector or a better option, but that number may not be measured the same way. So the only way that you as a person who's looking at purchasing a projector can make a educated decision is if everybody lists their brightness the same way. So now if you see one projector, brand A and brand B, and you want to compare brightness, at least you can get a little closer. So that's one of the things that Epson has been really working hard on.
So I think if we're going to have this discussion, we need to talk about some of the most common ways that brightness is reported on. We currently report, and the majority of the industry currently reports in ANSI Lumens. We're going to see a shift toward ISO Lumens. More recently, in the past couple of years, a big percentage of Chinese manufacturers were reporting in CVIA Lumens. And then the most confusing one of all, and that's been going on since LED projectors hit the market, is LED Lumens. Now, there are a lot of other type of lumens out there, but I think those are probably the four most common or relevant to the majority of the people out there looking at a projector. So let's talk about that. Let's start with what we currently use, which is ANSI Lumens.
Okay, so ANSI Lumens is an American. It stands for the American National Standards Institute. So basically, what it is, it's a technique or a procedure for you to get an understanding of the overall brightness of a projector as it projects on a screen. So there's basically 9 points that what you would measure on the screen, and then you would average those numbers together. And once you average those numbers together, it gives you your ANSI Lumens measurement. Now, and this works really well. Now, ISO Lumens is, so think of A as American, ISO is I as international. So the process to measure ISO lumens is like ISO 21118 or something like that. But basically, it's a very similar process. You measure a select number of points on a screen and you average it together to get the brightness. So right now, ANSI Lumens, or ANSI organization, has actually adopted the same test methodology as ISO. So when you see ANSI and ISO lumen measurements, most likely those two are going to be quite similar. The other ones are not. So let's talk about the one that you actually see first a lot.
CVIA Lumens.
CVIA Lumens. So CVIA, the C stands for China. So it's China Video Institute. Well, I can't remember what it was called, something like that. But it is a standard that was developed in China by Chinese manufacturers as a way of measuring brightness. Now, what they're saying is the argument that they came up with was the fact that when you do an ANSI Lumens or an ISO Lumens measurement, it is done across multiple points on the screen, but at a certain color temperature. preferably white at 6,500 degrees Kelvin, as close as that projector can do to that. Because we know a lot of projectors don't do D65 or perfect 6,500 degree Kelvin, but you try to bring up the white, and as close as you get to white as you possibly can is the one that you measure. But if you look at a lot of projectors, if you put them in its brightness mode, the thing is kind of greenish, right? Yeah. So what they said is, we're going to measure brightnesses at a range. And that range can be anywhere from 6,000 Kelvin to 18,000 Kelvin. So what they do is they take the projector, find the light or brightness that the projector likes the most, and measure that. Now, if you try to look at colors in that native color, it may look completely horrible. So you would not, you wouldn't use it. So ANSI is brightness that is, think of it as usable. So if we think about ANSI and ISO, most likely that brightness is probably more usable. CVIA, it may be able to do that brightness, but that color may be something that when you put it into a piece of content, you may not want to use. So you'll see that CVIA is normally much, much higher. Now, many companies, including Chinese companies like 4Movie, have just reached an agreement with Epson to now also do ISO. And you'll notice that 4Movie brightnesses have dropped. Like the 4Movie theater has dropped its brightness from a rating of 2,800 lumens to 1,800 ISO lumens. And you can actually see it on the website. So you're starting to see more and more companies adopt ISO or ANSI. So if you're used to ANSI, used to ISO, it's almost like the numbers are going to be pretty close. Now Phil, are we trying to measure exactly ANSI lumens? What's our goal when it comes to just measuring these projectors anyway?
Well, one, we can't be exact. We can't. So our goal is to see how close the manufacturers are coming to their reported numbers. There's an accepted margin of error in our calculations. I think earlier today you put it quite well when we were talking about this subject, which was, if a manufacturer says they've got 3,000 ANSI lumens on their projector, its ability to if a manufacturer says their projector can display 3,000 ANSI lumens, and I do my measurements, and my number comes out to be 2,750 ANSI lumens, well, that's within the acceptable, range margin of error, and that tells me that manufacturer is being sincere in their calculations. They're not overblowing it. But if a manufacturer is saying, no, I've got 3,000 ANSI lumens and I measure 2,000 ANSI lumens, there's something not right about that.
Yes, and we try to give the manufacturers a heads up when that happens. So they may say, oh, look at this projector, it's 3,000 ANSI lumens, and then we measure it, and Phil calls me and says, dude, the most I get out of this thing with lamp at max, in the craziest mode possible is
green mode.
is 1,800. So then we'll call the manufacturer or email the manufacturer and says, hey, how did you get this measurement? And sometimes there may be something like, chaos turbo mode, which is deep in the menu system to get to that. But sometimes it's not. Our goal is just to make sure that if you're expecting a very bright projector to use in a room in ambient light, the projector is very bright, and if it's within a few hundred lumens, who cares? Right? We just want to make sure that it's not 40 or 50% lower than what they said, because then we need to call that out. So that's why we do that. Now, the other one that happens a lot, and the other argument is LED lumens. And actually, I just saw a projector yesterday that said RGB laser lumens. And those numbers are, and then the projector actually has here is the LED lumen.
Right.
And then here, I've seen that. Here's the LED lumen. Here's the ANSI lumens. Or here's the RGB lumens. Oh my God, it's spectacular. Here's here's the ANSI lumen. And and that is because you'll start seeing LED lumens because they say that an LED projector, like a 4-color LED projector, or a RGB laser projector saturates colors more. So it appears to be perceived as brighter. And they came up with kind of a calculation for perceived brightness, and that's where that comes out. And it is based on this thing called the HK effect, which I'll put in the notes what the title is. I don't think I can pronounce it, but it's basically a scientific thing that human eyes, it's true, when you look at something that's more saturated, it appears brighter, which is one of the benefits of having a tri-laser light source on a laser TV to fight through ambient light. It just makes the colors pop. But it's not the same. So
yeah, it's not just this subjective thing, though. I think it's fair to say. I mean, there is a certain amount of data that backs that up. That when people look at a projector that has three color RGB or 4-color 4 LED light sources, they perceive that light sources to be brighter than it may actually be on paper. It's not just like me saying, well, I perceive myself to be the most handsome man in the world, and so it must be so. Well, that's neither here nor there. I mean, if you say so, you said so. But it's not a deceptive thing.
No, it is true, but
they're trying to quantify something that's come up, in their focus groups and testing. But it is to a certain point subjective.
You can't compare both. You can't compare ANSI to LED. You can compare ISO to ISO and ANSI. You can't compare CVIA, LED, or RGB laser to ANSI Lumens or ISO, because how the measurements are done and how it's perceived is not regulated. So, but I will tell you that I have seen a 2000 ANSI Lumen projector versus a 2000 ANSI Lumen LED or RGB laser or 4-color LED projector, and those tricolors or 4-color LEDs appear brighter. How much more brighter? Maybe they'll say 3,000 LED lumens, but I'll just tell you that it appears brighter. Actually, personal right now, Phil, I'm doing a review on the new LG. They call it the Cinebeam Q, which is a little tiny lifestyle projector they make it's a very nice projector. It has 500 ANSI lumens, which is quite impressive for a little projector that way. And it has two really pretty accurate color modes. One of them is like their filmmaker mode. Looks good. Skin tones are great. But man, on that little projector, especially on a bigger screen, when you switch it to its, they call it cinema. I think it's called Expert Bright Room. What they do is it's a tri-laser projector to 154% of DCI-P3. That Expert Bright Room adds a little bit more saturation to the reds and the greens and the blues. And man, there's always there's reference and preference. I know the filmmaker mode is the right way to look at it, but that other one looks really good, especially on brighter scenes, and you're looking at animation and stuff like that. So there is a purpose for it, but all we're trying to say is, if you're trying to measure apples to apples, ANSI lumens or ISO lumens, you can compare those two. The other ones, maybe you can use that to determine the difference between models in a brand's lineup. So if you're looking at a company that says they have one model that is 2,000 LED lumens and one that is 3,000 LED lumens, in that lineup, one of them is 50% brighter. But you can't compare it to somebody else's projector, because that measurement is not part of a standard.
And I think too, again, not defending the undefensible. There are some misleading practices out there, but I don't think that represents the majority of the industry. And as a manufacturer, you have to decide how a product that you're bringing to market is going to be used. Now, when you're in an environment that has a lot of light, that's okay, because what you want to do is you want to punch through all that light and be able to get a usable image. Maybe not a color accurate image, but a usable image.
Yes, exactly. So there's you'll see Lux and all sorts of other ones in there as well. But just for your own peace of mind, ISO or ANSI. They all theoretically the board that's doing this, the ANSI Lumens and ISO Lumens people, just said we're just going to call it Lumens, and they wanted me to say in our things, this is 500 lumens measured in the ISO 2011 blah 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 score. And I said I'd love to do that, but that's a lot of stuff to write every single time, so we're just going to call it ISO Lumens. So when I say ISO Lumens, it means lumens measured using the ISO 21118 measurement procedure. A little bit long to put in there, so we're going to just stick to ISO or ANSI, depending on which manufacturer is listing it.
When I hear a request like that, I'm just reminded of my days as a marketing person with the lawyers leaning over my shoulder going, no, you have to preface it with this. No, you have to put this after that. Great. That works for a manufacturer, but we're not a manufacturer.
Exactly.
So I think it's the right thing to do. We're going to just say it's ISO Lumens.
Yeah. So we'll continue to measure and just let you know that that it's close to what they measured. Phil and I use a similar measurement technique for this, where we measure several areas on the screen and we make an average to determine whether or not it's close. So his meter and my meter are very similar. So we're pretty good. So if you want to compare a review that Phil did to a review that I did, those brightness measurements between those projectors, you could kind of use that as to know that if one is 4,000 and Phil measured it and I measured one for 2,000. The other one is noticeably brighter. That's all you need to. That's all you need to know. Now
we also use similarly spec screens. Our spaces, while they're not identical, they are very similar in the ability to control lighting. So I think that's the case for all the reviewers that we have. Is we try and come up with a. You try and come up with a very fair, level playing ground when it comes to. The evaluation process.
The other one you'll see too is peak. You'll hear peak LEDs as well. And what peak is, by the way, is if you have something, especially like an ultra short throw, that is a very difficult lens to measure because and it's difficult for that lens to actually evenly display the light across the entire screen. So peak can mean one or two things. They move the meter around till they found the highest number, and that's the peak measurement. Or sometimes it'll blast super bright and then dim out, right? Yeah. So, and that could also be peak. So peak is just another one of those things that you got to take with a grain of salt. So we always ask a manufacturer, if you could share the ANSI Lumens or the ISO Lumens measurement, can you please share that so we can give you the a better measurement to help you compare across manufacturers. Now, in a previous video, we've talked about how do we quantify this. So I'm going to ask the same question to this audience for this video. We have lots of projectors we measure, and it'd be kind of nice to have kind of a rating system. But I can't rate a 16,000 or 20,000 lumen business projector as a 5. And then what am I going to rate the 300 lumen portable projector? 2 different categories, 2 different customers. So what do you guys think? Should we do a rating system? And how would you break that rating system up? Should we make it up into portable and then home theater and then, business? How would you break that up? So as we're trying to rate these projectors against their competitors, you get a better understanding of which ones are brighter than others.
And this is the kind of thing, I think whatever system that we may end up using, it's going to have to be a work in progress because the industry is constantly innovating.
Well, the other thing we have to factor in, Phil, is if you look at projectors and say I put in a number and said, wow, this projector is 3,000 lumens for ANSI Lumens for a home theater projector, it's a 5. Well, guess what? 4 years ago, 2,000 ANSI Lumens on a home theater projector was a 5. Now it's about 3,000. Projectors are getting brighter and brighter and brighter. Probably in the next 2 years, 5,000 ANSI Lumens is going to be a 5, and 3,000 is going to be a a 4 or a 3. So the problem is a projector can have a 3-year life. So if I give it a 5 in 2024 and that projector stays in a lineup till 2027, but now a bright projector is not 3,000, it's 5,000, and you look at that measurement and say, wow, this is a 5. It used to be a 5 as of the date it was reviewed. It may not be a 5 3 years from now when you read the article. So those are the things we also have to factor in when we come up with things like rating systems when it comes to brightness, black levels, contrast, because all that's changing as DLP imagers get better, SXRD imagers get better, DILA imagers get better. All these things continue to evolve. So you got to wait at it. New technologies like Barco,
what they were showing.
Laser
at
steering.
CES.
Yeah.
So, basically dimming for projectors, oversimplifying it, but, the technology is changing. And while projectors have kind of stayed the same, with the exception of, incremental increases in brightness and improvements in black level, we're actually seeing some really interesting shifts in the core technology that's going to change the playing field.
Yeah, because I'll tell you, I have a 75-inch TV in my living room because I used to use that during the day, because when I first put my room together, I have a 130-inch screen and 128 or something like that. But the projector I was using, my home theater projector, was about 1,800 ANSI Lumens. The one I'm using right now as a reference piece, a test piece, is 3,400 right now. And I'm getting to the point where I'm like, well, I don't even need the TV anymore. And in a few years, if I can get great black levels at night and that projector can throw out 5,000 ANSI Lumens during the day and it has a solid state light source so I can use it day in and day out, that TV's probably going to go away. And it's going to be a long time. It's going to cost me a whole lot more to try to put a 120-inch direct emitting LED display on that wall. So as projectors advance, big panels are getting bright. Flat panels are getting bigger, but projectors are getting brighter and brighter and brighter. Usable brightness to the point where there's still going to always be a place if you want a massive screen and you don't want to pay the price of a small car for it. All right. So Phil, I am going to let you go. Thank you again for another excellent conversation. One thing that I have been talking to Phil about is I would love to have you guys filling in the information and asking the questions on the fly. So as we build the audience and I get to a certain point where I know we're going to have a good audience for these, I would love to set these up on maybe a Wednesday night or a Tuesday night, and we can just interact with you, the audience, and answer your questions on the fly. And I would love to get your feedback on some of this stuff, because we're always working to try to make our reviews better for you and provide you with the information that you need. And I know you have a lot of questions about why doesn't Phil and Phil do this, and why don't they do that, and why don't they include this in the reviews? And we'd love to have more of an interaction with you. All right?
Sure.
So like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Let's get the group up so we can do this live, people. Live. All right?
Yeah.
So take care, everyone, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.